What's a secret your family made you keep that still haunts you? For me, it's the story of my sister's 3-day disappearance and the lie I was forced to tell. It's a ghost that took up residence in our home when I was 12 and never truly left. 7th grade had just begun, all new notebooks and uncertain social hierarchies. My sister, Tessa, was 16, a world apart from me at that age. She was a junior with her own driver's permit, a small circle of cool friends, and a life that seemed infinitely more interesting than mine. Our house was usually quiet. Dad was often buried in overtime at the manufacturing plant, and Mom filled her days with a whirlwind of community league meetings and volunteer work. Tessa and I coexisted, the 4-year gap between us feeling more like a canyon. Then, on a Wednesday, the silence became deafening. I woke up to find Tessa's bed empty, which wasn't unusual. She often left early to meet her friends before the first bell, but by that evening, her absence had a different weight to it. The house felt still, charged with a nervous energy I couldn't place. I found Mom in the kitchen, the phone pressed to her ear, her knuckles white. She was speaking in a hushed, urgent whisper I'd never heard before. When she hung up, I asked the simple question that would change everything. "Where, Tessa?" Her smile was a tight, fragile thing. "She's visiting Aunt Rita in Lakewood for a few days." I remember the confusion wrinkling my brow. "We don't have an Aunt Rita." The smile vanished. Her hand gripped the edge of the counter so hard I thought the formica might crack. "Monica, listen to me. If anyone asks, anyone, that is exactly what you will say. She is visiting Aunt Rita. Do you understand? No questions." The command was a cold stone dropped into my stomach. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, practicing. "She's with our Aunt Rita in Lakewood." I tried it with a smile, with a shrug, until the lie sounded smooth and natural. I had never been asked to lie about something that felt so important, so terribly wrong. The next day at school, Tessa's best friend, Bryn, cornered me by the lockers. Her eyes were raw and red-rimmed. "Where is she, Monica? She's not answering her phone. No one has heard from her." I delivered my line with the precision of a nervous actor. "She's visiting our Aunt Rita." Bryn's stare was flat, devastating in its honesty. "You don't have an Aunt Rita." My heart hammered against my ribs. "We do, she just doesn't visit much." The lie was sour on my tongue. Bryn didn't argue. She just started to cry right there in the crowded hallway before turning and walking away. I stood frozen, the weight of my complicity pressing down on me. The second night, Mom got a call that made her snatch her car keys and fly out the door with a hurried, "Lock the doors. Don't answer the phone." I spent hours on the living room couch, watching the clock, my homework forgotten, a knot of dread tightening in my chest. It was after midnight when I heard a car in the driveway. Peering through the window, I saw my dad's sedan. He was helping someone from the passenger seat, Tessa. She moved slowly, her head bowed, her posture defeatist in a way I'd never seen. When they came inside, I gasped. A violent purple bruise bloomed across her cheekbone, and her lip was split and swollen. She held her arms wrapped tightly around herself, shivering despite the warmth of the house. "Tessa, what happened?" I cried, rushing toward her. She lifted her head. Her eyes, usually so bright and alive, were hollow and empty. They looked straight through me. "Don't ask," she whispered, her voice raspy. Then she walked straight to our bedroom and closed the door. Mom followed with a small bag from the pharmacy, and Dad sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. When I tried to speak to him, he just shook his head. "Remember the story, Monica, Aunt Rita. That's all anyone needs to know." For 3 days, Tessa lived in the dark cave of our room. I slept on the couch. Meals were brought to her on trays and returned almost untouched. The silence in our house was no longer just quiet. It was a thick, suffocating blanket of something unsaid. When she finally emerged, the story was refined. If anyone asked about the fatting bruises, she had fallen while hiking with Aunt Rita. I watched her the next morning, carefully layering concealer over the yellowing remnants on her face. At school, she was a ghost of herself, mechanically repeating the lie, avoiding her friends, flinching at sudden noises. The weeks bled into months. On the surface, things returned to normal, but the light inside my sister had gone out. She stopped laughing. She jumped at loud noises. She never had friends over again. When I finally gathered the courage to ask her, months later, what really happened, she looked at me with a profound sadness and said, "It's better if you don't know. Please never ask me again." So I didn't. The secret became a permanent, unacknowledged member of our family. Tessa left for college and rarely came back. The questions faded but never died. The truth didn't find me until 6 years later, during a winter break from my own college. I was cleaning out my closet and found my old 7th-grade diary, the entries about those 3 days leaping off the page. That same night, I overheard my parents mention a name that sent a jolt through me. Oscar. Oscar Reyes. A frantic search through an old yearbook confirmed it, Tessa's boyfriend from before she vanished. I tracked down her old friend, Bryn, and over awkward coffee, the dam finally broke. "It was Oscar, wasn't it?" I asked. Bryn's face said everything. "You should talk to your sister," she whispered. I called Tessa that night and told her I was done with the lies. I deserved the truth. She agreed to come home. Sitting at the kitchen table long after our parents had gone to bed, the story finally poured out. Oscar had taken her. It wasn't a date, it was a kidnapping. He'd convinced her to meet to talk, then his friends were there. They took her phone, forced her into a car, and drove her to a remote hunting cabin his family owned near, you guessed it, Lakewood. When she tried to run, he hit her. The bruises on her face were his doing. Our parents didn't go to the police because Oscar's father was the police. His uncle was a judge. They had money and influence. We had neither. Oscar had threatened that no one would believe her, and his family would make ours pay. On the 3rd day, she'd managed to call our dad when Oscar passed out drunk. Dad and a burly friend had gone to get her. A deal was struck in the dark, our silence for our safety. Oscar's family would keep him away from her, and we would maintain the fiction of Aunt Rita. Our family's peace was bought with a lie. I was furious. How could they just let him get away with it? But Tessa just looked tired. "That's the reality," she said. "It wasn't fair, it just was asterisk." She left the next morning, the memories of this town still too painful for her to stay. We hugged goodbye, and she apologized for the lie I'd had to carry all these years. But the story wasn't over. A week later, I was in the grocery store when a man with a carefully groomed beard caught my eye from the end of the aisle. His gaze was intense, predatory. As I turned to go, he was suddenly beside me. "You're Tessa's sister, aren't you? Monica," he said, a smile playing on his lips that didn't reach his cold eyes. It was Oscar. He blocked my path, asking about Tessa in a tone that made my skin crawl. "She's still telling stories about me," he purred. When I spat back that I knew what he did, his smile widened. He spun a new tale, one where Tessa went willingly, where she wrote him love letters afterward, where she made him the villain to hide her own regrets. It was a masterclass in manipulation, designed to seed doubt. I pushed past him, my heart racing. That night I called Tessa. She was terrified, immediately denying every twisted word. "This is what he does," she said, her voice shaking. "He twists reality until you don't know what's true anymore." A few days later, a package appeared on my porch. No return address. Inside was a spiral notebook, filled with handwriting that was almost asterisk Tessa's. It detailed a fictional diary from that time, describing a consensual trip and an accidental fall. The last page read in a different hand, "The truth has many versions." It was a brilliant, horrifying fake, a final attempt to poison my belief in my own sister. I didn't hesitate. I built a fire in the backyard pit and watched every page of his fiction turn to ash. We learned later that his family was moving away for good. The threat, for now, was gone. The relief was palpable. That Thanksgiving, Tessa came home. I watched her at the dinner table and I saw it. The tension in her shoulders had finally eased. She laughed, a real, unforced laugh, and for a moment the ghost was quiet. But some secrets don't vanish. They just become part of the foundation you build upon. You learn which stones are solid and which ones you can never quite trust to hold your weight. I learned that the truth isn't always something you discover. Sometimes, it's something you choose to protect, fiercely and without question, from the shadows that try to rewrite it.